Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Neo Tokyo's official podcast, Interlinked.
Huge shout out to our sponsor, Playa3ull Games. They are inspired by gamers and funded by their community. They have a epic game on the Epic Games Store, a third-person shooter called Nexus. Hop on in there and check that out. They're also currently selling nodes, so if you're interested, check that out at their website, playable.games. That is a 3 instead of a B on Playable. Now strap in for the rest of this episode of Interlink.
I'm joined today by Tim, the CEO of Coin, the makers of Project O. How's it going today, Tim?
I'm amazing, Nick. How are you?
Doing quite well. Stoked to be talking about some crypto gaming, particularly some TCG today. As we were discussing before we hopped on, I've recently become a little bit addicted to the One Piece trading card game, so I'm even more
Love
emotionally
it.
charged on it than the last time we chatted. But let's get started with a little introduction for yourself. What's your background? How'd you get into our Web3 TCG space? And we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so my background is has nothing to do with gaming or TCGs or Web3, but yeah, I'm a first gen, I guess, immigrant from South Africa. So we moved here with my younger brother and single mom pursuing the American dream. I was a pretty shy kid, homeschooled for a while, so naturally like fell in love with video games. A lot of World of Warcraft in my past and competitive games, love PvP, Call of Duty, stood in line for every Halo that came out for a long time. And then little, Skyrim here and there. Not a lot on mobile gaming other than like Brawl Stars, but fell in love with gaming. Was a really shy kid, ended up going to Bible college, got a degree in theology. And then found myself kind of at a crossroads at about I graduated with a bachelor's in theology at 19, so I was pretty young and still kind of had options. Do I go get a traditional degree or do I go kind of get an education in the real world by working in the right businesses? And so an opportunity opened up to work for a guy named Adam Barger, who was the founder of Kazaa Gold or Kaza Gold, the music downloading like competitor to LimeWire back when downloading music was a new thing, and the Shuffle had just launched, the iPod Shuffle, and so it was kind of a perfect moment. And so I got to watch one guy with one American engineer and some engineers in another country, and then one head of customer service, me, and some customer service guys in another country run a business that started making like millions using Google AdWords. And they were like, basically getting these downloads of this peer-to-peer software that basically did what LimeWire did for free, but they sold it. And it just was, I don't know, at 19, it just blew my mind that that was possible. And I kind of fell in love with tech and the concept of they didn't have to like to sell 1,000 accounts. They didn't need to make 1,000 things. They just needed to reach 1,000 people with the thing they'd already made. And so I loved that idea. And I just thought, okay, I want to be in tech, but I'm not technical. I'm not the engineer. I'm not that guy. So where do I find my space? And I knew it would be on the sales and marketing side. So I kind of made a decision at that moment. I'm going to stay in tech, but I'm going to move into sales. And so I then went and found my first sales job, which happened to be for Verizon Fios. They were rolling out fiber optics in Florida, where I was living at the time. And it was a door-to-door job. So it was not what I expected, but it was probably the best education I could ever have. So at 19 years old, knocked on my first door, and they said no, and I was so relieved, and I ran around the corner and almost quit. And then I was like, well, I already quit my job. I've got to just stick with this. And so I decided to stick with it. And and I started to figure it out. And I realized that to sell, you could be loud and whatever, or you could just be someone that's good at communicating one-on-one and genuine and believe in what you are selling. And you actually do really well based on that. And so my career kind of took off. And within a year, I was number one rep in Verizon in the country. And I made my first like 100 grand as a 19-year-old. And anyway, that's a whole nother story, the stupid things I did with the money. But Yeah, and that led down a really fruitful career over 15 years in sales. It went from Verizon for 3 years, then to the company that most of the awards you see in the background have come from, which is Vivint, which started out as a security company. And then when I retired a few years ago, we were the largest smart home tech company in the world. And I think second or third largest solar company as well. And so, yeah, it was a crazy ride. Built teams, did about 2.5, 3 billion lifetime revenue while I was there, and had about 750 employees at the peak, created 30 plus millionaires. Got to stand on the floor of the stock exchange with Ed Kramer in the background when the founder rang the bell above our heads as one of the few sales executives that was there. And so just a crazy journey, especially from a boy from South Africa with a GED, a 10th grade education, and a Bible school diploma. But yeah, and so anyway, yeah, and then kind of the final chapter after having this crazy successful career was that I just found myself at around 38, almost 39, sitting one day thinking, what am I doing with the final chapter? I've, spent since my 20s, early 20s, like becoming amazing at one thing. And, but what do I want to do? And I knew I wanted to stay in tech. But I really, after soul searching, knew I wanted to build something myself. And so it was going to be somewhere in the tech space, somewhere with a outsized chance to disrupt a huge industry. And, yeah, just something I would believe in. And one fateful day, I was scrolling through Twitter at my brother's house after church, and I see this article that says Beeple NFT sells for 69 million. And probably many people remember that. And I thought, I don't know what a Beeple is. I don't know what an NFT is, but I know what $70 million is. So I read the article. I learned about Bored Apes and, rappers buying pixelated pictures that they put on Twitter for $1 million. And I was like, I don't understand any of that. That must be the same reason they sell art, like with a stripe across a white paper for $1 million. But I understood the technology, the fact that there was, for the first time ever, the ability to sell a digital image for $1 million and someone being able to say, I own it, truthfully. And that blew me away. And my mind immediately went to video games. And I went right back to World of Warcraft. And I thought, man, if all those items I owned were on this technology, I could have probably sold them or at least valued them more, maybe not even sell them. And so I just thought, man, it'd be crazy if someone brought Pokemon to blockchain, and whoever does that, a game with a true collector ecosystem that's worth owning, that would be crazy. And so yeah, that was my light bulb moment, and I just decided I'm going to go build the best and recruit the top talent into a game studio. And so that's, we can jump into that next, but that's how I got here.
I love it. I can only imagine that there were maybe a couple Legos included in that in those purchases when you got that first 100K at 2019.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of things. I wish I had started getting into collecting back then. I actually only got into Pokemon collecting again, maybe about a year and a half ago, and it's obviously done really well in the last year and a half. It was a great time to join the hobby, but yeah, being from South Africa, I kind of missed a lot of the American based stuff in my childhood, but I'm definitely making up for it now as an adult. So anyway, which I think that's what is driving the hobby now is a lot of adults making up for not being able to do it as children. So anyway, yeah.
Definitely. I think it's a combination of like nostalgia chasing and maybe some like economic conditions where it's like high inflationary environment, wealth
Yes.
disparities kind of getting out of control. So like everybody's looking for their ticket to like not have to worry about money anymore. And I think
Yeah.
the same thing fueling sort of like TCG, which also has the nostalgia factor, is also like driving things like Robinhood and meme coins and just like sports gambling. Like there just seems to be this huge appetite for risk,
Yeah.
and that when that gets paired with nostalgia, that seems to be like a real winning ticket that's been working over the last 5 or so years.
Well, and I think, I totally agree. And when I look at that, that's why I get so excited about the future of uh like TCGs in digital as a collectible asset class because Um, you have kind of the evolution of something that innately has been collectible from day one with Pokemon cards, then into a more open type of economy that can just do things you can't do with physical, or at least not as easily, right? I think that's why loot box sites and some of these on-chain Pokemon sites are doing so well, because it is it's a simpler experience. And while you give up, I can't, if I ship it into the warehouse or whatever, I don't have it in my house to look at. But like, is that really why I have it? And can I still appreciate the idea that I own it? And when I'm ready to, I can sell it a lot easier. And I think there's a whole segment of the market, and I think this is just the beginning of that. I also think our generation, our fine art will be like collectibles, sports cards, Pokemon cards. So yeah, there's a lot of overlap. And specifically to TCGs, it's such an interesting thing, and it's why I'm so passionate about bringing the digital side to life as a collectible, because you get to be in physical TCGs. I can be a player and I can be a collector and I can be both. And I think most people are some part of both. They might favor on the play side, less on the collecting. But it's not that they don't sit there and appreciate their binder full of cards or their favorite card in an alternate art that they pulled at one time. Like, people have their stories. And then you have the full spectrum of people who, I mean, there's a lot of folks that just collect, that don't even know how the game works. They literally just do the collecting part. And when TCGs evolved into digital, most games that go digital, they have much more potential in digital, because you can now do it anywhere, anytime, with anyone in the world. So it goes really global and it removes all that physical friction. But TCGs still like dominate in the physical space over their digital counterparts. And why is that? Well, you've kind of stripped out part of the soul of the experience. You took away the collecting. Yes, you collect in Hearthstone, but you collect just to play with the deck. That's it. So there is no, I've never heard of a Hearthstone collector who's collecting the cards for collecting. And part of that is, some people would say, well, it's because you can't sell it. Thank you. My coffee's arriving, and I'll, enjoy this in between the
Nice.
questions. But thanks, babe. But in Hearthstone, one you could say, well, in order for it to be a collectible experience, you just need to enable collecting. Like, what if Hearthstone just let the cards be tradable? That's part of it, but you have then the problem of infinite supply. Nothing with infinite supply, aka inflation, can be collectible by nature. So you have to solve this very complex problem of a free to play game with a collectible economy. Luckily, I think we figured it out, so we're very excited with what we're doing. But like, I think there's such massive untapped potential for the first digital TCG connected to a hyper competitive game, hopefully with an esports scene, that then brings to life and actually designs for collecting. So it's different with, like, you can collect, and it was designed for with collecting in mind. So when you go into designing for collecting, what do? Well, you start doing things that the physical TCGs are doing. Like, look at One Piece. How do they do their pull rates? What do they do with their different art editions? They have one of the best, in my opinion, grails, like grail types with the manga cards of
Mhm.
all time. Like, it's really good the way they designed that card. It's so iconic in its look and feel, and the way they like decided to do that. So there's so much built into that, and why they're a much more collectible game than the other 20 physical TCGs that launched in the same time period, right? So anyway, so that's what we're aiming for, is to design for that. And I just think there's a massive audience that is already waiting, and maybe doesn't know it yet. And then it's something that will just only grow over time. I think all collecting uh, will have ups and downs, right? The economy may turn and Pokemon may come down again. But I think if we fast forward 30 years, a lot of people think Bitcoin will be higher than it is today. And I think Pokemon cards will be higher than they are today. And I think there'll be whole new asset classes and digital things, CSGO, all of that, right? Because of that same point. They're printing tons of money, but these items are limited. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. Let's dive into, as we discussed, like the IP is such an important part of creating a collectible with emotional resonance. So I'd love to dive into, what's the IP for the both the game and the collectibles and Project O? Like, what's it all built around, especially with your Bible degree background. I mean, that has some of the most like prolific IP, if you want to put it that way, that's ever been created. I think, top selling book
Yeah.
by so I think there's probably going to be some inspiration from maybe your past, but I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, we don't have anything directly from the Bible at all in the game. Though, we have had one or two people say like alongside all these public domain characters, should we be bringing in like, the big one, bringing in Jesus? But I think that like, we see the game as a playground for just like amazing entertainment. Games are meant to transport us away from our world. And so our goal there is to transport people right into a new world. And so with that, we went down the road as we like explored, because we actually built a different game before this one for over a year. And then we just felt it was not good enough to be the next big strategic esportsable game, competitive game that we felt the audience that we wanted to build for. So we went back to the drawing board and realized we really wanted to be a next generation TCG, basically make TCGs even more accessible, faster paced, more exciting than they've ever been. I'm actually not a TCG guy. I grew up on Call of Duty. I grew up on PvP in World of Warcraft. So I like high intensity. I like faster moving stuff. The average card game for me, because of the turn-based system, is just it's kind of feels like a grind and it's just too slow. So I vastly prefer when I played Marvel Snap for the first time. I loved the pacing of the simultaneous turns, and we have our own version of that. And so it makes us very unique as a product because it's really fast, it's really intense, but it has a lot of depth in it that Snap does not have, similar to Hearthstone. And so, but with that, when we were pivoting from the one game to the other, we had the exact same idea. Like, if we're going to make a good card game, we need to think about IP very seriously. So we considered going to our contacts at Disney and licensing Star Wars, which, as you can tell, would have been a bit of a dream. But with that comes, you can make a lot more money, right? But you also give up 30% of the top end. And then the freedoms that we would want to be able to have a true ownership economy probably would not be given to us. And so with that, we decided to go back to the drawing board and try to find a way to bring in nostalgia, recognizability, so that there's innate collectability already in the product, but do it in a way where we can own the IP and we can build it. And I'm obviously we're drinking the Kool-Aid over here, and we love what we built. But I really think we have something very, very unique that has never really been done before. And so I don't want to give away all the spoilers, but we've built a world where basically all of these famous characters kind of fit really well together. So you get to see Winnie the Pooh, our version of him, inspired by the original, not by Disney's version, but by by the original works that are owned in public domain, to Sherlock Holmes, to Red and Robin and many other super well-known characters, even into Naja in China, the cartoon that made like $2 billion recently. It's the number one movie of all time in China. It's based on a public domain cartoon character that is one of our characters, to Wukong and all of the above. And so we have this amazing cast of characters. You can see a few of them behind me there, and but bring them to life for the first time in one environment. And so we are behind the scenes, working on where this world can go. And I don't want to really get too much into it, but we're starting work now with an incredible IP development company that has vast experience, starting in bespoke toys, many lines in Walmart, into the TCG realm, but then into Netflix. They've got multiple Netflix shows. And we've shown them what we have and our first idea for a Netflix show and such, and they love it. So anyway, I know this space gets super into like the hype over things. I don't want to overdo it. It's very early, so we're just talking, but we're moving in that direction, and so some exciting stuff. And so I think the IP is gonna become very big over time. But what I will say is that in the game, it just fits super well. People like, there's something funny about Humpty Dumpty as a kingpin gangster in our world, or the not so three little pigs, and different characters where we can infuse some humor. We can still kind of honor their original roots, but you get to see them realized in a brand new way. And so, in reality, every one of them is a completely new character. We rewrite their backstory, and then we, tell it in this new way. And we're inviting the gamer and one day the viewer to come explore this brand new world where all these characters originated from. So, yeah, so I think it's going to be a hit. What I would say is that we don't have like it's not an established IP yet. People have to fall in love with it. But I could almost see it as what they would refer to, I guess, as an instant classic, where basically the second it lands, people just love it. It feels cohesive, and it just makes sense. And then all of a sudden, all their individual nostalgia for each character is coming to life in a single universe. And then we've done some really fun stuff to reinvent them. And plus, it's a kind of a modern tech meets magic world. So there's some inspiration from Arcane, not as, let's say, dark as the show, but kind of some inspiration from there. So yeah, that's probably the most I could say now. And then there'll be a lot more, in the future.
Well, I'm especially hyped up already on the Wukong. Clearly, as like Dragon Ball and One Piece are two of my favorites, and those Luffy and Goku were cut directly from Wukong as like the
Yep.
inspiration, as
Yep.
Monkey is Luffy's first name, and the fact that Goku has a tail, they were pretty heavy-handed on that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in a lot of
Yep.
ways, these are sort of like the proto characters, the archetypical characters that, a
Yes.
bunch of modern IP is based on. So being able to start with that core foundation that, I mean, Winnie the Pooh has had, emotional resonance for over 100 years. Some of these characters, like even longer. It seems like a
Yep.
really, fertile ground to like start to grow like a new IP or a new take on these original characters.
It really is. I think the potential long term is massive, and it'll be like a snowball where once the first thing is formed and it starts heading down the hill, I think the potential is kind of the sky's the limit in what we can do, and yeah, it's very early, but when you get in a room with guys that have been building IPs, great IPs for many many years, the guys we're working with had heavy, heavy, heavy influence into Marvel and their entire like toy ecosystem and some stuff with Pokemon in the past. So they're really like first class, very bespoke. They kind of pick who they work with, and so to be in a position and to show them and for them their eyes to light up at all the possibilities and are like they're very excited to get going is yeah, it's exciting. So yeah, it's again, we're too early to like really do it, and I'd rather we prefer to err on the side of most of this industry's environment where we deliver it and then the exciting news happens rather than always hyping to something that inevitably like fails to meet the hype. But anyway, I think there's a lot of potential there. Yeah.
Let's jump over to the game side. So you had mentioned, coming from like fast paced, like Call of Duty, more games that really have like that quick sort of like appeal. How are you guys like taking that influence into the game as far as like the like visual representation of the cards like fighting each other? Will there be any sort of like action from like the attacks or when the characters are attacked, kind of like
Yeah, yeah.
Pokemon style, or am I
Yeah,
on the
you
right
have
vein?
yeah. So I think the closest thing in our design is Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap did a couple things visually that card games had not done. They really leaned into excuse me, like a full art version. So the most card games, the art is only a small section, right? And Marvel Snap really went, full art with all of their cards, and so we're inspired. Love that style, and I think you'll see inspiration in our art from that. They also really went kind of took the card mechanics and like the visuals around what they were doing to the next level. So when who is their character? I'm forgetting the name now, where he basically stretches his arm from the Fantastic Four. Anyway,
Oh,
Mr. Fantastic, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
And so he like, he buffs the two locations next to him, and so his hands come out of the card. So it's a hybrid of it feeling like a card, but it doesn't have just a generic thing. So we have a lot of that in there. And then when it comes to the actual combat, so Snap does not have combat in their game directly, right? And that's one of their biggest drawbacks for like that slightly more pro level player. And so we aimed to make a game that kind of was right in between Marvel Snap and Hearthstone. We believe that that's an unoccupied area in the TCG genre. So accessible enough for a brand new mobile card player who's maybe been playing like Clash of Clans or Brawl Stars or any semi-competitive game, he can come over and he will love the game. Like even if he's never touched a TCG, like we are doing very well with first-time card guys who like look at games like Magic and are overwhelmed. Like I could never do that, but you'll love our game. 13 card deck, really simple deck construction. But under the hood, we've got all these things that we've done. Like for instance, we double the base deck. So you actually have 24 cards in the deck and one legendary to play with. So for a pro player, he's got 25 tools at his disposal to show the skill gap between him and someone else. So we're doing equally well, I would say. And this is really the magic of our game compared to our competitors, that we are equally loved by a brand new player as a pro level player, and specifically the pro level players who tried Snap and felt it was too shallow in depth. And so part of that is adding combat. So back to your question, in the visuals, we have a mix of like, beautiful cards. The cards also upgrade like they do in Snap. So there's a visual like progression to them where they become more good looking. And then you have and then the VFX on the board itself, we've got some custom ones for like obviously the cooler the character, the more iconic, the more love we put into the thing they do. And then when it comes to the actual battle sequence, we're making it as cool as we can. Ultimately, the cards still just hit each other. That is like what you do in card games. I think our version looks good, sounds good. It's also meant to be fast, like there's a actually interesting balance between like visual just enjoyment, and then also like it's got to move quickly, otherwise people want to turn it off. In fact, the more pro level player someone is, the more requests we get like, can we just turn off all the effects? And you're like, we spend so much time on them, they're so nice and they cost lots of money. But yeah, so that's the visuals. And then the only other thing I think that really is unique about us, well, there's two things. One is we do have a 3D avatar on the sideline, and you can see that in games like Gwent has that, and then Teamfight Tactics has done that. It's like an idle little character that you can fidget with in between games, so it's nice. In our game, it's a place to show off your personality. There'll be a bunch of these characters. There'll be different skins. It's kind of like your Fortnite skin. It has no functional side to it as of now. May come in the future, but it has just cosmetics. So you just kind of show off your favorite character there. And then they come with things he can say and things he does throughout the match. So there's like some fun there. You can fidget with them. And then at the point where you take down one of the two barriers, because basically like in Snap, you win by winning two locations on turn 6. In our game, you win by doing combat at two locations until you remove the barrier at the back. And so basically similar concept, but just with combat instead of stacking power. And so when you take down the first one, your avatar shoots his Mortal Kombat move across the board and hits the opponent's avatar. And then when you win the game, he has this, finish him move. And, it's a fun way visually to finish the game. And so, yeah, and each character has a different one. So Robin Hood, has his rain of arrows that he shoots across the board. And, Puss in Boots jumps across and scratches up the character, so anyway, so there's some fun that we have there. And so that's the visual differentiation, I would guess. And then the last one, which we could either go into now or save, is we have one final effect, and we're calling it a VFX skin. So it's essentially a skin to your card. So you can pull, I'll just use Charizard as an example since I have a bunch of them. Well, I've got technically Charmander and Charmeleon here, but let's just pretend these are all Charizards. So you can pull, we'll say this one's the lowest rarity and this one's the highest rarity in the yellow. So you can pull like different versions of cards, right? In different rarities, and they're harder and harder to pull, just like any physical TCG you're familiar with. And then we're adding a VFX layer on top of that. And that works almost like CSGO, if you know that ecosystem, where you're rolling a skin, and then the skin has its own rarity in it. It falls in one of 5 rarity tiers from mil-spec to exceedingly rare. We have our same concept in the rarity of the skin itself and how hard it is to get that skin on any card. And then we have a quality system like CSGO as well of 100 points of quality in the skin. So when you put all that together, it creates this amazingly fun and deep collector ecosystem on top of the card rarity. So we have essentially, it's like taking Pokemon's or One Piece collector economy and adding to it via digital VFX skins, the CSGO rarity system. So I call it like a horizontal rarity is the One Piece Pokemon, and the vertical is CSGO in skin rarity and then skin quality. So as a collector myself at heart, I get just all the good feelings about this. And, when our game is established as a true contender long term, as a competitive game, I think the collector side is going to be nuts. I think it'll be incredible. So, yeah.
Now a word from our sponsors.
What's up, crypto gamers? Shout out to our sponsor, Myria. Myria is revolutionizing Ethereum-based gaming with its powerful L2 scaling solution. Think zero gas fees, instant transactions, free NFT minting, and more. Myria offers a suite of tools that are tailor-built for game development, including game-specific SDKs, a spec'd-out marketplace, Web3 spiked leaderboards, new AI super tools, and more. All this fueled by a fleet of player-run nodes that are a breeze to operate and pump out daily rewards for supporting the ecosystem. Plus, check out Meta Rush, the Battle Royale obstacle runner by Myria Studios, dropping very, very soon.
Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Now, piggybacking off the like sort of like collector side, obviously one of the most, it's now inundating my YouTube feed as I have gotten into One Piece recently, which is ripping packs. So what is the like Project O version of like ripping packs? How do people get their cards and like try and kind of grind or purchase their way to some of these advanced rarities?
That's a great question. So this is at the heart of, I think, one of the unique things we've done in the meta game, because while all our competitors in digital card games, they kind of have meta games built around, some kind of free yield, and then they have you progress up that chain, and then you usually can accelerate that progression to get the better cards through spend, right? And that's pretty much every meta game out there. We have a version of that, and so that's what we use that in our kind of free to play section in what we call a player pack. So it's essentially a pretty basic pack that's designed to give you utility so that you can play with it. And so that's designed for the pure player. So you come in, you're a free to play player, you want to access free yield. You don't have to spend. It's a free to play game. You can accelerate your progression into later tiers, essentially by ripping packs and combining cards, which upgrades the cards, and then upgrades your account to get into the next tier. And so you kind of progress that way. And so anytime a new set's coming out, so it's a hybrid of Marvel Snap and Hearthstone, I would say. But we feel we've removed the parts that people don't like about each and kept the parts people like. So, you'll have to judge for yourself if you're into those games, if we've accomplished that, but we really like it. On the collector side, collectible economies, for them to exist in the true sense of the word, meaning like our goal, just to be clear, is that I want to get someone like yourself who's currently collecting One Piece, and I want you to add our game to your collectible portfolio. And even if you don't even play One Piece nor play our game, that's our goal. Is I want to get you in our ecosystem just because you're a collector. Now we're doing a few things to do that. We've got a very strategic partnership coming that'll be announced soon with a product a platform that is also launching as a collector experience. And so our whole, ecosystem will live there, and hopefully that'll be the first one of many, many, many platforms that you'll be able to eventually collect and enjoy our cards on. But that being said, our goal is to attract that pure collector. So we've really designed for that in mind. And so at the foundation of anything collectible is they have to be limited. Like you can't separate those two facts, right? Unlimited and collectible don't go together. So we have a separate pack in the game, which you can win and earn, but it's always going to cost something. And they're limited in quantity and or time, depending on what you're looking at. So they function almost like crates in CSGO or pack, print runs in Pokemon. Or I actually do have some One Piece, by the way. I've got an entire case down here. I think I have OPO 12 and then 9 maybe.
Yeah, I got a case of 9 sitting over here as well.
Yeah. So I've barely opened any of it. I bought it just because I wanted to flip it. So anyway, but all that to say, so these collector packs at the beginning, they start out limited. There's a print run in essence, right? Or a time window. And then once that time window is done or that print run's done, you will never see that pack nor its contents ever again. And the reason we're able to do that is because you can always get the utility. You can come into our game 5 years from launch and still get the original cards in the player pack. But if you want any of the rare versions, the ones that are full art or alternate arts or guest artists or grails or our version of the manga card, if you want any of that, that is only in the time released version. And so that is there for the collector or the collector player. And so if you're lucky enough to win one or you earn it or you buy it, you can start to then, during that small window, acquire those. And so you can buy the sealed packs and just keep them sealed. You don't ever have to open them. If you envision that this game is going to gain traction, you can also then rip the packs. And when you rip the pack, unlike the player cards that have to be leveled, they come out done. They come out fully leveled and they come out revealed with their VFX skin instantly. So the second you open it, just like in a CSGO pack opening or almost just like in a Pokemon pack opening, you either own a card that is worth $5 or $5,000 or $50,000 or whatever it is. And the second you open it live on stream or with your friends or at an event or whatever, you've pulled the Grail. And now there's multiple layers to that again. There's the Grail card, but then there's also the Grail VFX skin. And then there's also the high quality version of that skin, right? The highest quality. So it's going to be a really fun experience. And so, it'll be ripping packs. Packs can stay sealed and then the contents inside come out. And then there'll be a grading mechanic. So similar to physical, you will be able to then choose to grade your card. And that's the moment your card becomes tradable and also usable on any of the other platforms outside of the game.
And is the grading separate than the quality rating? So there's really like 3 dimensions to like each card, the horizontal,
No,
vertical,
the grading is just the readout. I mean, it adds all this functionality, but the grade itself is entirely just based on the quality. So you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? So card rarity is one thing. How rare is this version of that card? Is this the rare red, or Sherlock card, right? So let's say it's the Grail Sherlock. It's a 1 in 15, 1 in 1,500 packs pull. And so you pull that Grail card. Then you have the skin rarity, which might also be 1 in every 1,500 cards, this VFX skin. And if those two are combined, well, that's an insane card. But then the quality could fall anywhere between 0 and 100, just like in CSGO. So if you happen to land at a 90 and you're in that top pristine bracket, well, then your card, and we're still dialing in the details, but like I could just say likely you land at a 90, well, your card is a 9 on its grade. So it'll mean something slightly different than PSA and BGS and all that, but it'll be familiar. So you'll see your grade. Yeah, and then that will open up like some cosmetic flex stuff. Like we obviously, like in CS:GO, part of what drives that economy, of course, is the trading outside, but it's also the ability to highlight those rare skins in like tournaments and all that. So we are really like now working through the ways you can showcase your collection to the world, both as a collector and as a player. Or if you one day, likely down the road have the ability for a collector to loan his card to a player. So like a top esports player could have the Grail card that maybe just sold the week before for $1.5 million and he's got it in the tournament. And we want to make sure that everybody watching knows that's a Grail. So how do we do that? And so we're kind of ideating on some of those things. But yeah, it's really interesting. Designing a game for players and collectors is really never really been done like that before. I think CS:GO in a way stumbled upon this thing on accident. Maybe credit to them. Maybe they foresaw what they were trying to do. I don't think they ever imagined what happened would happen. And so, but they really made some interesting design choices. And so we've taken a lot of inspiration from that ecosystem, and brought it in. And then we have a lot of stuff that is inspired by physical Pokemon. And so it kind of bridges the gap. So to kind of wrap this up, we really think we have, once the game is established, right? If you look at CS:GO, there's like, in my opinion, from the outside, there's 5 things needed to make that a collectible product, right? In Web3, everyone's like, oh, our game has NFTs, so it's collectible. But I would argue, like I said earlier, it's not. You can make it collectible and you can design for collecting, and they're very different. Um, uh, CSGO is designed for collecting because of the rarity system and the detail that they put into that, and the sheer volume of these skins and the way they do crates. It's all those elements combined that actually make that product work. But the other side of it is the game has to be good. So I see it as like a layered cake. First layer, game's got to be excellent. Second layer, it's got to have some kind of esports scene or at least heavy streamer presence, if not esports fully. We are going hard after that, and we're doing very well with pro players. Some people saw our announcement of our council. If you dig in there, there's about 17 pro players already interacting with the game. Unincentivized, they just love the game. And we've been privately showing, I'm not going to drop any names, but we've been showing, well, I told you before the call, but anyway, I'll save those news. But anyway, I was on the phone earlier today with the largest, I think, esports team in the world. And so, we've got a demo now for them. And so our chances, I think, in esports are quite high, assuming the game does what we think it will. And so then the third layer is build for collecting. And that's definitely what we've done. The last 2 layers that made CSGO what it is today is they enabled collecting, aka Steam, and other marketplaces that come off of Steam. And then the final step was the gasoline on the fire, which is loot box mechanics. Basically, what people now know from Courtyard and Collector Crypt and Box GG and all of those guys. These loot box things for CSGO have been around way before the introduction of Pokemon and all of them to the same concept. And that's really what fueled the growth in the ecosystem and these crazy numbers. And if you look, CSGO has a sale over $1 million, 1.5 million, I believe, for the top knife. Pokemon only has a few cards over 1 million ever. And so you think about that, the largest IP in the world by total sheer volume. Pokemon is worth more than Marvel, worth more than anything in Disney's library. I mean, it is the biggest by a long shot. It has its highest cards and there's only a few of them, are bigger than this relatively unknown product when you compare to Pokemon. And yet they're matching that. And that's just due to that sheer rarity depth, just the math in between the least rare item and the rarest. And so we've kind of taken inspiration from both. What makes One Piece, Pokemon, and Magic the most collectible card games, while many of the other ones don't ever establish that? And then what has made CSGO so special? And we've woven those together and made sure that that's the key highlight. And then that starts in the game, but then really is going to find its life outside of the game for pure collectors. And so players can come in and enjoy it. They can also collect. But pure collectors can come into the ecosystem and collect with us, and I think they will absolutely love it.
So there's one question I can sense is burning in the audience, which is when can we actually play? So
Yeah,
where are
yeah.
we in development? When are people going to be able to play? What are sort of like the stages of like availability?
Yeah, well, so we are in alpha slash kind of moving into beta as we speak. I don't know exactly when we officially, I believe beta officially starts in December, but so we're kind of in late stage alpha, I guess you could say. And so anyone can join the Discord like right now and play. And then I believe we have a special play night set up soon for the Neo Tokyo audience. That's likely the listeners. And so anyone can join and play. And then if you love the game and you want to keep playing, we've already been running tournaments. We had our first kind of in-person tournament at GDC that went really well. Cairo and some of the other guys did really well. Cairo's a brand new. He's quite well known for his off the grid work and other games, but he's a new TCG guy. But he's fallen in love with it. We get texts from him often. When are you turning on the servers again? So Cairo's awesome. So yeah, so you can play right now with the team in its beta phase. We've been play testing and we've had a few thousand players come through the product already and are unincentivized. We are giving away some packs here and there, but it's really not about that. Our goal right now is real feedback from people who love the game, and we're getting a ton of that, and the results have been amazing. In fact, it's the highest result any of my co-founders who've been making games for 25 to almost 30 years. My three co-founders have shipped 73 games in their career, from mini games to full-blown huge titles, and they've never had a higher scoring alpha build of any game prior to this one. So that's early exciting things. And then, but come see for yourself and see if we're full of nonsense. And then the really we're gonna open it up in on mobile. The plan right now is December, maybe January, but we're aiming at December for soft launch. And that'll be Philippines only on mobile. And then we will progress to different geos in tech testing. You then move into engagement after that on mobile. And then finally into monetization testing. And then after monetization has come back well, you are ready for global launch. And so our goal, if all things go as planned, which in the world of development is usually not the case, but we'll just say if they do, that we're heading into global launch sometime Q3 of 26, so next year. So really just around the corner when it comes to game development. So it's been pretty fast to get where we are, and we're really excited. The game is showing very, very well. Anyway, game's really, really fun. But when we get in with these guys that are career TCG guys, they've built a career playing Hearthstone, they built a career playing Marvel Snap, and you sit down with them and you play some sessions and they're laughing and they're loving it and they want to keep playing, 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 and they ask you to leave the server open for them and they ask if, they're like, they want to work with us. We feel we're on to something big. So yeah. But yeah, anyone can
Well,
come join us right now.
Well, definitely, if anybody's antsy before the NT event, definitely hop in the Discord. We'll put a link in the description so you can go and get the Project O Discord. Hop in as soon as you watch this episode. And then we'll have the NT Plays event on Saturday. This will be coming out on Tuesday. So this upcoming Saturday, hop in the NT Plays section of the Neo Tokyo Discord. Again, that section's open to everyone. So if you're interested in joining the Neo Tokyo community, or just the NT Plays community, go in there. There's going to be a form you need to fill out. So fill out that form as soon as you can. We'll get it over to you guys. Make sure everybody has access. Now, this is again coming out on Tuesday. So the big announcement came out yesterday that you guys are going to be the first investment from ByteStreet, which I've been biting my tongue on and keeping that quiet for long enough that it's been hard, but I'm super stoked for it. I know the community is going to be, between all the people who are super stoked on Web3 gaming and the very alive TCG subculture, both for collectors and players in Neo Tokyo. I think everyone's going to be super hyped. rather than dive into any of the details because we're short on time
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
guys are going to cover that on Market Monday. So I'll provide a link to that recording in the description as well. So go get all the details and make sure you're following Neo Tokyo for announcements. But the last question I have is why'd you guys choose Byte Street as an investment vehicle or to like sort of launch an investment?
Yeah, I mean, part of that is honestly comes down to two things. I have been a part of Neo Tokyo since the early days. I was, part of the crazy, chase around the internet and all the codes that Becker was dropping and all the mystery, and I actually, in the moment when, we unlocked the final piece and we were able to type in our code to mint our NFT. I got my brother's code in and then I typed in mine and tried another one and tried another one and I missed. And so I actually bought my way in for a pretty penny after the fact, but I was in the Discord before. I, hired pro level players to play games for me to get my S2s. Like, anyway, so I've been a part of this, since the early days. I've had moments where I was more active in Discord. In recent 2.5 years, we've just been heads down building. So a lot of people don't know I'm in there, but I've what I would say is that like outside of what I'm doing, my first love in just NFTs and just like one of the most memorable experiences ever in Web3 is Neo Tokyo for me. So I have a special place in my heart for the community. So we always said no matter what we do, it'll be like our own community and then Neo Tokyo that we want involved. And obviously leadership has changed when it comes to like the investment side and there's been all these new things, but we've always been close with many of the guys that are involved now in Byte Street. And so when the opportunity opened and it just aligned with our goals, Blueprints, which is the asset that we're talking about, is very innovative. There's nothing like it in the space. It's our true, paying honor to what a Web3 kind of collectible can and should be. It's a mix of a pudgy penguin with IP ownership and an off the grid node with connected into the game, and a Pokemon Magic the Gathering card slash like owning a blueprint of an AK-47 in CSGO, and it connects you to our economy. And it does some really cool other stuff. And so we personally, I mean, I'm actually buying a bunch myself with my own money at the same price as what we're offering everybody else, no discounts. And so I think it's, I know NFTs have gone through the ringer and I have a graveyard of stuff that I should have exited 2 and a bit years ago. But all of that learning and experiencing what they could have been, should have been, we've built that into this and we think people are going to love it. Hopefully they do. And so anyway, it's kind of the merging of the two. There's also some legal reasons we like Neo Tokyo. You guys are doing things the right way. And so that fits us. We're very legally compliant. We work with I think the best crypto lawyers in the US. And so that comes with certain constraints, which doesn't allow us to do a public sale or any of that. So this is kind of that perfect hybrid moment where we can stay legally compliant while offering something to people that are properly vetted and all that. So yeah, that's why Neo Tokyo. We love you guys, and I think it's like perfect to come full circle as a member of Neo Tokyo and to get to offer this project that we've been building for years in secret to this amazing community. So yeah.
Super stoked, super grateful on behalf of the community, not only to have you as a member, but also what you're offering through Byte Street. And to all the anti-KYCers, why does it have to be KYC? Why does it have to be KYC? Here's why. Because A,
Yeah,
it's the law, and B, you're not going to get the most reparable investments in the space unless you're squiggling inside the line. So that's
that's
how
right.
things lay out, and that's how things have to be. So get that KYC done early so you don't miss out on the investment. Don't leave it to the last minute. I'm talking to myself as well because I haven't done it yet. So I need to do that. All that information is in the Neo Tokyo Discord. Go to the Byte Street section, go to the NT Play sections for all details for the upcoming game night. Make sure you fill out that form. And besides that, Tim, turn it over to you for closing thoughts.
Yeah, I would just say, we're at such an interesting point in the world where, things have gone up and down in crypto. Obviously, it's looking like things are going to get exciting again. I do think we're in a different world today than we were 2 cycles ago, 3 cycles ago. I do think this cycle is different. Having been a part of the last two, and this is my third, where I see the line now being drawn outside of the big names, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, all of the above, is can you get real users? Can you get real revenue? And then can you design that into your economy in any way, whether it's collectibles, token, or all of the above? And I think the opportunity there is actually greater than ever because while we have an oversupply of just sheer speculative garbage out there in the Web3 world and not enough money to go around. So nothing's moving really except for a handful. It's the perfect opportunity to be building something that brings real value into the real world. And so, I'm again, we're drinking the Kool-Aid over here, but we're very excited about what we're building with this super competitive game. And then separate from that, enabling the first true, digital TCG collector experience. And I think it's gonna be really exciting. And so yeah, if you like competitive games, if you like GameFi, if you like collectibles, if you like Pokemon, CS:GO, One Piece, and even if you like kind of an IP play, I think it's worth if you've listened all the way in, like make sure you attend the play session, see the game, even if you're not into card games, just come check it out, and then just see where we are. And then I guess I also discourage you if you've been thinking about building in the space aside from all this, just start, look for a way that you can bridge real value into these ecosystems. Because I think the US is about to go very pro Web3 and really try to catch up. And I think with that will come a ton of new opportunity on all segments. And there's more than enough room for everybody. When you have a good product, you'll win in the end, regardless of what people said about you along the way. So yeah, come join us.
Hell yeah. Super excited, Tim. Super grateful for your time. Apologies, we went a bit over, but this was Neo Tokyo's official podcast, Interlinked. We'll be back with another episode next week. Make sure you guys cop in the Discord to make sure you don't miss any of these announcements. These dates are going to be coming up fast, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the y'all's week.